you very much. And you're a key figure in computer games, obviously. You're one of in fact, the first person to actually publish a computer game, aren't you?
As far as the history books are concerned, I don't quite know how true that is. 19th of November 1977, as far as I know, to be precise.
And how did that come about?
Good question. I was producing a radio program for a local radio station, commercial radio station, called Radio Victory, down on the south coast of England. And for some reason, I know what the reason was, the guy who ran it I went to school with. So I blackmailed him into giving me a late night show. And the show was called Quiz Time. It was a pub quiz. And once a week we go round to a local pub, record a lot of pissed people doing a pub quiz, and I would take it back to the studio, edit it, add sound effects and whatnot, and then we broadcast it late night. I was into computers, oh God, way back in the early 60s, programming using punch cards and things, and making computers do rude things to music. So I was doing like sort of multimedia back in the 60s, really. Computers would make little lights flash depending on the audio frequencies and so on. So I had a couple of old home computers, and without telling the radio producers, I would broadcast computer code over the air, over FM and then AM, late at night, in order to inveigle people to participate. So what you had to do was download the computer code. Remember that?
I do.
It goes like that. Download it onto your cassette player or reel-to-reel tape recorder at home. Load it into your primitive computer via tape, and up on the screen once a week would come a series of numbers. Those numbers were ordnance survey coordinates, at which point, if you identified, by phoning in the radio station, if you identified the correct location, you would win a crappy prize. Thus was multimedia born, hunts, computer, real-life interfaces, geo-caching, the whole thing was invented by accident. I was bored, really. So that's how it came about, the first program, and then the first season, we were meant to be advertising beer, whitbread beer, ghastly, filthy beer. And first week or so we had, literally 3 or 4 people who participate and phone in. But by the end of the season, there was a few hundred. And then I had a chat with the guy who ran the station. And he said, okay, let's go for it. Let's do a full-blown computer-based season, whatever you got, basically. That went on until, let me think, the Z80 was born. Then as soon as this Z80 came out in kit form, it started to go mainstream. But I say mainstream. There were dozens of people involved locally, so you would have, little computer clubs starting up and, exhibitions and get bothered by school children and kick them. But even back then I was an old fart, you see, so I was by no means part of the back bedroom early boom. I was a bit before that. So I already had a publishing company. We published maps, tourist maps, and then added cassettes to those to give you a soundtrack. And you put the cassette into your car, turn left, turn right, eat at Joe's, stay at, Mars Hotel, and this was in tourist resorts, usual tourist resorts in Europe, some in America. So the publishing company was up and going, and we could duplicate cassettes. We had this amazing machine. I think it did 8 cassettes at a time, fabulous automation. So as soon as things started going mainstream, which would have been 1981, I would say, when the ZX81 came out, and then you started getting the numbers turning up, and we used to have, little trestle tables and flog labels, stuck everything on, wrapped it all up, and people would hand over their pocket money. It's great.
That sounds a lot like the coordinates and that sort of thing. That was basically what Pymania was, wasn't it?
Yeah, very much so. I only have one idea at a time. So, I mean, if it works, don't change it. So that worked for Pymania. Groucho, that worked. That took people over to the States. But the market in America never really took off for me. Just too far ahead of that. I mean, people who had trestle tables on some of those early shows, who are still around today, are the very old people. I mean, back then we had the embryos of people like Activision, all wooden tables, fabulous. Really, really, really interesting people who could see the future coming, but the technology just wasn't ready for us. We only had to wait, half a century or so for things to catch up.
So how did you get the idea of the Golden Sundial for Pymania?
I knew a young woman down here on the South Coast who just won a prize called the De Beers Diamond Prize. Very prestigious if you're in jewellery making. And she had a little shop quite near our office. It's in the next street, where she made these wonderful little artifacts and, stuff. Much too expensive for civilians like me. So I got talking to her and said, look, what if... So I had this sundial idea already, but didn't have a sundial to give away as a prize. And as you probably know, all the entertainments I've ever done, I've tried to give something back to the players just to thank them, basically. So in this one, the prize was a sundial made of gold, the little dangly doodah thing, the No Men, I think it's called. That was a bloody great De Beers diamond. It was set in some lovely crystal rock. It had niobium. What was the blue stuff? What were the blue stones called? Really deep, 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 deep blue. They named a paint after it, but I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, her name was Barbara Tipple. Quite a good name, really, Tipple. And I said, how much would it cost to make this thing? And she gave me a price. Oh, fuck, Can I say fuck?
Yeah.
All right. I can't afford that. So somehow I got, all of the budget went on this bloody diamond prize thing as opposed to the game. It cost a lot of money. And so we ended up having to cut every corner going. We did all the programming ourselves and all the design, mates of mine, who I still work with now, actually. The cartoonist guy who did the Pie Man, Robin Grenville Evans, still work with him after all these years. And it took minutes to program it. Then the most time-consuming thing was doing the music. I always thought that computer games would be multi-dimensional things. I thought they'd have music, soundtracks, proper dialogue, voices, actors, locations, LPs, magazines, T-shirts, the whole 9 yards. But of course, back then, no one understood what on earth I was doing. LPs and magazines and setting the hair running for the competition and making sure the magazine came out once every closing time, and it was very important to get the buzz going. Then we did this great deal. These things called magazines, Sean, magazines. It used to be printed on things called paper.
Right.
And they used to sell them in things called shops, right? And there was this magazine called Popular Computing Weekly.
Uh-huh.
That was a weekly magazine for computing, and it was popular.
Right.
Right? So again, using a little bit of blackmail and always made them an offer they can't refuse. So the offer they couldn't refuse was, you give me the back page once a week of Popular Computing Weekly, and I will give you a page of entertainment and cartoons and jokes absolutely free. So as far as they were concerned, good deal. They got an extra page, good copy, very, very topical because, so it's a weekly mag, so we could react to what was going on in the world of entertainment or politics or anything, and computer games. So we took the piss something rotten out of the new people coming along, competitors, early competitors, Ocean and people like that. And great fun. We spent pints, sort of working out the back page. That became our job, really. But it went on for years and years and years. I can't remember how long Pie Menu went on for. It was about 3 years before somebody sold it. Yeah, we got accused of, faking it, and there was no prize, and there was, it wasn't for real. But it was all for real. And so we harnessed that back page to launch the music and the clubs. And there were teams of people all over the country, actually all over the world by the end of it, trying to find a sundial. Somebody went to Bethlehem. Somebody went to Bethlehem on Christmas Day to find the sundial. Poor bastard. It wasn't there. I mean, we wouldn't dream of doing that, sending, expecting people to travel. So we set it in the UK and on a well-known landmark. And because I had a peculiar mind, I located the sundial in the horse's arse. A large white chalk horse carved into a large chalk hill. And you could only win it on a particular day. I'm not stupid. You can only win it on a particular day of the year. 22 over 7, Pi. And so on the 22nd day of the 7th month, you would turn up in the horse's arse, and the Pie Man would present you with the golden sundial. However, I thought it would last for one season, and I was wrong. And it lasted, I think it was on the 3rd anniversary that somebody actually won it. And they were as surprised as we were, actually. Two lovely school teachers from Ilkley in Yorkshire came, travelled halfway across the country to pick up this sundial. And as far as I know, it still sits on their shelf. Unless they sold it and melted it down. I don't know. Next question, please, Sean. Next question.
The puzzles in Pie Mania, so it was based around a clock face, wasn't it, for directions?
It was based around a clock face and the constellation of Pegasus, which, of course, is a horse in the sky.
Yeah.
So it was Pie in the Sky, yeah?
Oh, I get it.
The horse's arse, there's so many references. I'm amazed people didn't get it instantly, but there you go. Remember that golden rabbit, golden hair thing?
I do, yeah. I forgot the name of it now. Yeah.
That took somebody yonks to crack that. And not that I stole the idea, but it's not far off, is it? But as far as I know, it was the first sort of real-life adventure game ever. Using real locations. But as I say, I was most interested in the music, really. So the computer games have just been a way of force-feeding the public my shitty music.
You thought of the idea for the Pieman as well, didn't you? I know Robin drew them, but how did you come up with the idea for the Pieman?
There's a still wartime cartoon character. I'm not that old, but I was born in the 40s, so I can't remember that. Actually, post-war really clearly. I was dragged up in Berlin, and it was, obliterated. But there was this little character that they used to draw on walls called Mr. Chad. Mr. Chad looked over a wall, and he had a long nose, and so I just stole the character. Brought him back, 40 years later, I suppose, 30 years later. So it was based on him, It was offensive, but not that offensive. The character was capricious. It would change its mood, depending on what you did in the game. And it was a great vehicle to run a very long, very large cartoon strip of. So then any other character that we launched in subsequent titles would appear in his cartoon strip, along with real-life characters. Loads of industry characters, computer industry characters, lots and lots and lots. There's a book out, and it's called... Let me just shift to the bookshelf. It's called Short Pants. Hang on, let me just make sure. There's a trilogy of books out of my greatest hits between me and Robin. Okay. It's published by Acorn Books. Should be able to get pirate copies, or I'll find them in the remainder bin. And there's a new edition came out not so long ago. There's 3 volumes. One's Great Moments in Computing, which is the comic strip from computer and video games that went on for 30 years. Everything in there. There's one called Short Pants, which I love, and that's all the stuff we published in the various magazines. And there's a lot of material that we published. And then the one I'm pointing you towards is called Bipolar Disorder. And Bipolar Disorder is every single comic strip from the back of Popular Computing Weekly. So the whole history of the British bedroom, UK computer and video games industry are in those comic strips. It's all true. There's stuff in there. We never got sued. Everything we put in it was true, albeit in cartoon form. And then it goes through sort of to when the big corporations started moving in, which would be about 1984, 85, and big bastards came in and tried to buy everybody out. They tried to buy me out. Daily Mirror tried to buy me. Mirrorsoft, remember Mirrorsoft? They tried to buy me. I had meetings with Alan Sugar when he started out. And Mirrorsoft was run by a young man called Kevin Maxwell, who was the son of an older man called Robert Maxwell. Whatever happened to them? But we refused to sell, and in the end, I sold the company for 10p. 10p is blue tack to my wall as I sit here, because, I had other things to do, so I walked in 1985.
You've always been ahead of the game in terms of ideas, haven't you? I mean, Deus Ex Machina, that was outstanding, wasn't it?
So they say. I think I made a lot on that one as well. Actually, it came back. I brought out Deus Ex Machina 2 for 40 years later.
Tuesday evening, after tea and compulsory prayers, the last mouse on earth tried to hide from mankind inside the machine.
What you call? I'm a fertilizing agent. My brothers are all wriggly. What you call? I'm a fertilizing agent. My brothers are all wriggly.
Hello, hello, children everywhere. Hello, hello, it's time to shave your hair.
Nearly 40 years later, and the second time around I got it right. I got the music right, I got the graphics right, I got Christopher Lee, to do the narration. So again, all the budget went on the music and the sound, but at least the graphics were up to it then. So you can probably find that on YouTube somewhere. What happened with Deus Ex Machina, or Machina, as Christopher Lee once yelled at me, "It's fucking Machina!" He was a classical scholar. What happened was that when I put it all together, it was exactly the same as a program I brought out for the Z80, I think, in about 1979, called Love and Death, which started preconception with, sperms and stuff, and ends with death and rebirth, blah. If you can find a copy of that, and there's some videos around, I'm sure, on YouTube somewhere. Black and white, 1K, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
But a whole of Deus Ex Machina is in there. So only 5 years later, I brought it out in glorious 24K. Man, that was a luxury, 24K. Yeah? But it worked. So to be ahead of the game, going back to your question, is great, because there are no rules, there's no one to tell you what to do. Well, there's no one anyway, because there wasn't even a market when I started. It didn't exist. And you just do what you feel is right, or what you want to do. So with Deus, I just didn't know you couldn't make movies in 24K. Nobody told me. And I was sort of wrong, but I was sort of right. It does work. It's a whole hour. And I remember the guy programmed it. He came with, he sort of run out of memory. Right? So I just said, turn the cassette over. You know, it's just so easy. And if we run out of memory, we would have had another cassette. And you just load on top of what you've already got, and so on and so on. It was dead simple. Same with the soundtrack. Halfway through, you turn the cassette over. But a cassette, boys and girls, is a physical thing that you put in a machine called a cassette player. And it has a little bit of ferromagnetic tape in it that rolls through from one side to the other and plays against a magnetic head. On one side, you have a computer program. So the other side is useless. And my little brain says you turn it over and you put the soundtrack on it. We did that for all our productions. Every single one had either comedy show on it, or jokes, or or music. So my background back then was radio production. Although that was fraudulent, because in fact I qualified as an architect. I'm an architect, really.
Right.
And I didn't like it very much, and I was a crap architect. So I came back from the Middle East one day, having built obscenities in the desert for Rashid bin Salman, whatever his name is, in Dubai, and I realised what a terrible thing I was doing, just ballsing up the environment, basically. So I'm a great resigner. I resigned from that, and that's the last paid job I ever had in my life, back in the 70s. And when I came back here, I thought that this computer thing was really going to boom. I was wrong. I had to wait, again, another decade. And there was once upon a time, there was a guy called Rod Cousins. And Rod Cousins had a company called Quicksilver. He ended up with Activision. Anyway, we were sitting in his office. I was in Portsmouth, which is on the south coast. He was in Southampton, which is the next sort of big town along. And we used to meet up very, very often, because we liked each other. And he liked my dog, and I liked his office. And once upon a time, he was also capable of throwing a strop, as was I. That's what we do, being autodidactical Stalinist prima donnas. And he fired his entire staff, just like that. And we sat at his boardroom table, which was much too big, a bit like Putin, he was at one end of it and I was at the other. And he looked over at me and he said, Mel, because that was my name. He said, what do we do now? I said, I don't know, Rod. What do we do now? He said, I don't know, but one day, he said, listen to what I'm saying. One day, this computer business, which basically he and I represented at the time across one table, will be bigger than music. It'll be bigger than videos. Videos were, we used to view films on. It'll be bigger than books and magazines. It'll be the biggest thing in the world. And I laughed at him. Right? He was right, and I was wrong. He's extraordinarily rich, and I'm not. But that's the way it goes.
Do you think you missed your calling at all? Do you think you should have been a film producer?
No, because film production involves working with others, and I'm not very good at that.
Right.
So, and it also involves other people's money, and I just don't do that. I've got a company now with hundreds of investors in it that does something else. That's involved with music, actually, and video, and new talent and young people. It's called Genie, Jwe, co-director, we give it back. We give it back to the new acts, and we help them. We've got a number of people involved in the company who are. I know you want to talk about video games, but I'll just drop this in. Did I miss my calling? Yes. I would have been a great leader of Soviet Russia. I would have been fabulous as Stalin, telling people what to do and sending them to the camps, but my moustache it wasn't up to it.
Right.
So there I was with this little Frank Zappa moustache. So at the moment, I'm still doing the same thing, really. We've got over 5,000 unsigned musicians, and we've got 2.7 million fans, which is good. And we just put in one with the other, which is a nice thing to do.
Right.
Most of the music is not my music, bloody awful. But there you go. I'm not the arbiter of taste. The public is. So, same as Pymania, they're involved. They vote what they think is great. What I want to do, Sean, is put this on. I'm going to ask you a question. Do I want to be a film producer? Yes, of course I do. I'm going to put it on television. There's a company called Pizzazz TV who've offered us a channel. Imagine the horror of the Eurovision Song Contest lasting forever. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
With shit content. That's great, isn't it? And then the audience gets to vote on it. Right? And it will cost the artist $10 to put their audition up on this TV channel. And it will cost the public 50 cents to vote on it, right? So if we get our audience, great. And the trick is, we give the money to the artists. We don't keep it.
Right.
Because it's free to run a TV channel. Do you know that? Don't cost anything.
Right, no, I didn't know that.
Cost a connection. You just connect it, through a desktop computer or something, and then you play broadcast quality videos through it. It's free. If anyone tells you different, they're kidding you. If anyone says we need advertising to pay for all this background infrastructure, that's bollocks too.
Right.
Right? So good luck to them and their advertising and their sellouts and all the rest of it. But again, it's not for me and not for the people I work with. I referenced Frank Zappa just now, and in between video games and what I'm doing now, and journalism and stuff, I built up some massive databases for celebrities. I've told this one before, but it's really worth telling again. And one of the people I work with now knows everybody in music and entertainment. If you want to get through to Paul McCartney, she will get you through to Paul McCartney, which she has done for my little business. Anyway, we were having a conversation. She was in Cupertino, Silicon Valley. I was here in Portsmouth. And she said, "Who's your real hero, Mel?" And I said, "Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa's a genius, greatest musician of the 20th century, so far ahead of his time." And she said, "Do you want to talk to him?" So to cut a long story short, this woman, Kelly, she got me Zappa, she got me Prince, she got me Eminem, she got me all the people I asked to be put in touch with, for the simple reason that Zappa, and this is back in the 80s, man, he'd worked out that this thing called the internet had just arrived. And he worked out it was going to be big, and he worked out it would break all the traditional industries. He worked out we don't need distributors, we don't need shops, we don't need physical vinyl anymore, we don't need CDs, we don't need nothing. What we need is your email address. And he worked that out. I helped Zappa Family Archive for about 3 years, building up a database, basically.
Right.
It's great. What we used to do was, "Hey, Mel, this is what we do." What we used to do was, get out of all the... Remember piracy? Software piracy, which is what killed me and my company in the early days of computer games. I just didn't realise I was being pirated. So everyone was playing my games, but not playing the soundtrack, so they just looked like nonsense. Anyway, Zappa's philosophy promoting his music on the planet using email. And then he could sell them direct using something new called software downloads, right?
Mm-hmm.
He worked all this out before as it was happening. Yeah. Then he went and died.
Right.
So I stole his idea and took it to Prince and Eminem and Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin, whole lot. And then they paid me, thank you very much, and built them all huge archives of I was going to say pirates and fans, but let's call them pirates. That's a great way of doing it. So, there's Prince. Nice guy. Pays on the nail, dead, as most of my clients are. He took over the O2 Arena, big plastic boil in the, London's Docklands. And he took it for a couple of weeks, I think. Let's say it was 14 nights. No publicity, nothing. He just changed his name. His website went black. And the deal was, you go to his concert, you enjoy it, and all he wants is your email address. Now, Prince has got the email address of all his fans, because the fans he's got one-to-one going to his concerts, he says to them, or rather we say to him, then, send us the name of 10 of your mates, and we'll send you Prince's next. Oh, actually, we'll send you a recording that nobody else has got, you know.
Yeah.
Or we'll send you a CD, and your name will be on it in the credits. Fabulous, really ahead of his time.
Mm.
Then he went and died. So I'm getting a bit old by this time. Went back and did Deus Ex Machina again with people, this time people, shit-hot people, good bands, orchestras, great singers, because I could afford it this time round. And first time round we probably sold, a dozen copies, and then 40 years later probably sold 2 dozen copies. So I'm on a roll now. And then there were a couple of approaches. Would I be involved in this, that, and the other in terms of video games? I've always said no, because it's not really my show, my idea, or my my thing. I've got I've got 2 titles that I would like to get out before I snuff it. And one is Scheherazade, which was designed for a machine called the Scion Organizer about 30 years ago.
Remember that?
Yep. And it was Alexa, but it was 30 years ahead of its time.
Mm.
So she lives in there. You can see her. You can interact with her. She changes her mood, very much like a game I did called ID, and very much like a few others. So it's all the same game. I've only ever got one idea. But if you don't like Scheherazade, you can change her into her brother, Scheherazade. And, 1001 stories. And even back then, with the Scion, she knew what time it was, where you were, what day it was, what the weather was like. Of course she did. It was all built in. Mm. And she knew who you were. And she knew what your address book was. And sorry about that, I forgot to turn my phone off.
It's okay.
And so I would like to bring that out. But of course, it's already been done now with the new generation of AI. So I've probably missed the boat because I couldn't possibly afford to bring it out without advertising, without all the shit that goes with it now. Mm. So it would be taken over by, by the usual suspects, I'm afraid. And again, I can't do it. I'm not playing.
Yeah.
The other game is very interesting. Before Christopher Lee died, we did a new version of Hymania, which is pretty cool. That must be on YouTube somewhere, the soundtrack anyway. And we did a game called Xanatov. Anyway, it was brought out by somebody else in the 80s. And I just bought the rights to it. That's why I liked it. That dragon and the princess, all that cliche. So what I wanted to do was turn it around. And the main player, the baddie is the princess, of course, and the hero was the dragon.
Hmm.
And I wanted to play it through the eye of the dragon, so all you see is reflected in the dragon's eye. In other words, cheap programming.
Right.
Right? It's kind of 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions, realistic, blah, blah. Just can't afford it.
Hmm.
So the easy way, some of the best programs ever have had primitive graphics, monochrome graphics from Leni Riefenstahl in the whatever her name was, in the 1920s and 30s.
Yeah.
Those old expressionist films, great graphics. And once you're into entertainment, you accept it. Once you're into a Tom and Jerry cartoon, you accept it. It's reality. You don't worry that impossible things are happening, especially in computer games. So 2 things that I could bring out that I probably won't, but it might be nice if I get really bored. And I've got a full-time job at the moment, running this Genie thing. And, I'll keep going as long as I can on that. I still get hugely over-impressed by stars and celebrities and, good musicians.
Yeah.
And, I would love to work with more. But they all now, most of them, have armies of, personnel and officers, and they do their own videos, they do their own, multimedia stuff.
Yeah.
So in going for the unsigned artists, I said, we've got 5,500 now. Somewhere in there is going to be a genius. And all I want is for the public, the fans, to vote for them, because I haven't got time to listen to them. So the algorithm will tell me, before it tells anyone else, who an up-and-coming star is going to be.
Yeah.
Which is very comforting. And it saves a lot of time and trouble. And it's incredibly democratic. Can't be bought, it can't be influenced. As we know, you go to Spotify, you go to anything, any of the charts, and it's all faked. Everything is faked.
Yeah.
You buy your way in, it's so depressing, man, it's so depressing. And they can also keep you out if they don't like you.
Yeah.
So the entertainment world is dominated by the same names, the same superstars, they're everywhere, and they just force everybody else out.
Yeah.
If this is going on YouTube, great. But YouTube is dominated by the usual suspects. There's nothing you can do about it. And nobody's, the only people making money out of it are Meta or X or whatever the fuck they're called these days. YouTube and their ilk. They're making squillions, and so are a few high-profile celebrities. But to get paid 0.000142 of a cent, for a stream, I mean, you got to be joking.
Yeah.
Even, somebody who's half decent, who gets plenty of views from their royalties from YouTube, they can afford a pizza and a Coke once a month.
Yeah.
And that's the way of it. So from that point of view, I'm glad that I'm out and have been out for a long time. I can't imagine what it's like to be involved with that sort of stuff now.
Well, your new venture sounds really interesting. It's quite, a novel thing. I think it's really going to take off as well, because a lot of people like to do that, don't they? They like to vote and, they like to judge things like that.
Hope so. If I'm involved with, there's only 3 people running it. Me, old fart who's designing your computers, yeah. A young lady who has got a very good brain in terms of money. Her name is Sheena Mitchell, and she's like the business side of it, which I've never been. I'm crap at business. She's good. A guy called Roger Watson. He used to run a label called Chrysalis and Arista music labels. He was floor manager for the Beatles, who were a little band back in the 60s. And he sold he's responsible for 500 million record sales. Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's as much as the Beatles.
Yeah.
That's good old Roger, who I spoke to yesterday. He's like me. He's on his last legs. Kelly, who's the one over in America, she's the the mover and shaker. She knows everyone. So she can pick up the phone and get through to anyone. So we've got plenty of celebrity endorsements, Grammy Award winners and #1 artists. And they're not nobody's taking a penny out of this, Sean.
Right.
And the reason we're doing it is because we can.
Yeah.
If we can give something back, and not many people are going to give something back. And McCartney does it, he's good. We've got his bus. He was a band called Wings.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And he had a bus, double-decker London bus, which he went travelling around Europe in. And it was lost. It was rusting in a valley somewhere. I think it was Tenerife, actually, it ended up. Just a heap of rust. And we found it and got some lovely people to bring it back to its full glory. And it's just going on tour right now. Converted the top deck into a stage. And it's still called the Wings Bus. Again, because Will and Kelly picked up the phone and home and dry. So when we do find hopefully we find the next generation of stars through genie.com, and that's spelled with a J, folks, JEENI.com. If we do get some new stars voted democratically, they can appear on the top deck of the McCartney bus. That'd be fantastic. My dream, actually, is to put newcomers alongside like celebrity acts. We got not many, but a handful who said they're up for it. Because we can use, the wonders of COVID Zoom now, they can appear with anyone, anywhere. So if there's a kid somewhere in, I don't know, Namibia, who plays a great blues guitar, and we stick him on with, I don't know, Slash, that can be done. That can be done.
Right.
By the wonders of science.
Yeah.
They can appear on the stage together, and we can even have one of them on the top of the McCartney bus. So, still got the dreams, and it's still very, very easy to make them happy, believe me. If you know what you're doing, and the technology is there. Sorry, even if the technology isn't there, you can make it happen.
Yeah.
But these days, the technology is there. And the only difference between what I'm doing now and my exit is going to be AI. And I do feel a little bit guilty for being involved with AI at the beginning. I did a bit of work for other companies. I'm not averse hiring myself out, prostituting my brain for money. So I've done AI stuff for others and video games for others using AI.
Right.
And going right back to the Scion organizer 30 years ago. So there was a very interesting program I did called ID. And it sort of takes on the personality of the player, no matter what. And that got picked up by a couple of publishers and researchers. I'm quite involved with, because mates of mine are fading out with dementia. And I go and visit and help. And computers are quite handy. Just to keep them going, I suppose. Dementia's a very interesting frame of mind to be in. So AI is going to be of huge importance in that field, but of course it will be abused and misused like it always is. Like that poor old Z80, damn sure, in black and white and in 1K, or whatever it was, 4K, with little blobs of pixels.
Yeah.
After I did what I did, next guy came along 5 minutes later, started killing things, or porn, basically. Murder and porn. That's video games for you. Oh dear, what have we done? And the same thing's going to happen with AI.
Yeah.
You know exactly what's going to happen. We all do.
Yeah.
But it's not even the elephant in the room, it's the elephant, in your head. So, unfortunately, you can't stop that.
No.
Very recently, I got shot as I head towards a significant birthday, I had all this stuff, a huge archive of stuff. I had reel-to-reel tapes of soundtracks and boxes of thousands of magazine articles I'd written. All the old film on formats I can't even play anymore. VHS and all sorts of stuff. And all the games and a few, hey folks, a few awards. Loads and loads of stuff. And then all the original paperwork and research and design boxes of it. That all now sits in a big place, just to the left of Manchester, called the National Northwest Computer Museum.
Right.
It's in an old converted spinning mill on, I think, a 4th floor. Anyway, my entire archive has just gone out there because there's no point keeping it here, because when the time comes, it would have gone into a skip.
Yeah.
Nobody in the slightest bit even know what it was, or even be able to play it. So at least up there they got the machines, and there's already a guy from some geezer in Prague University is going over there just to research stuff, which is great, really good. Thank you. I'm glad that somebody might get something out of it.
Yeah.
In years to come, even if it's just a thesis.
Yeah. Been brilliant. Thank you.
All right. Fuck off.
You take care, mate. Thank you.
See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.